Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is Multifamily Chronicles. I'm your host, Adrian Danila. Today, we have right here with us in the studio, Jason Fein. Jason is the National Maintenance Services Director with Camden Properties. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thanks, Adrian, for having me.
Jason, why don't you start by introducing yourself to the audience? Tell us a little bit about yourself, about personal, professional background, and a little bit about your history. How did you get into multifamily?
Oh, sure. I'm the National Maintenance Services Director with Camden Property Trust. I've been with Camden for about 5 years now. I support the maintenance teams, and I have a group of really great maintenance market maintenance managers. We just changed their title recently, and regional maintenance directors. And what we do is we support the on-site teams, and we with training or with tools or whatever. I've loved my career. I kind of fell into it a little bit. I don't know if how many people graduate high school and say like, I'm going to go paint walls and be a maintenance employee. Some do, some don't, but I fell into it. I was living in an apartment complex and I think they needed a maintenance technician. And so I was paying my rent and they asked me, because they knew I was in construction. So they asked me, hey, you want to get 20% off your rent and free cable? And I think I was 21 at the time. So I said, yes, I do. So, so I joined and I worked my way up, and I've been blessed with the ability to be able to learn different parts of the maintenance industry, from doing repositions on turnovers and doing capital work at the properties, and then now I'm a maintenance services director for the company. So that's been my professional career path for the past 20 plus years.
So how long have you been with Camden?
5 years.
5 years.
I was with Equity Residential before that, and that's where I started off my career. I was a maintenance tech, scraping, caulking in every turn for multiple months until finally they let me do something else.
So I do want to ask you a little bit about your company, because I think we all know that it's one of the most sought after companies in the industry. They win awards about best places to work all the time. So a little bit about the culture. What makes Camden? What makes them a great company that they are? Would you like to share a few things with us?
Yeah, I think every company, the name of the company is just a name, right? It's a stock ticker. It's just a name on a header or in a signature in your email. That's all it is. It's the people that you work with, and it's the ability to give your people a little bit of room to be able to make mistakes but learn from them, right? And that's one of the things that I loved about Camden was we're empowering our people, maintenance technicians, all the way groundskeepers, supervisors. Everybody gets an opportunity to be able to voice their opinion and see what works. And what's been great is watching the executive leadership give the on-site teams the ability to do that. Sometimes, some of the companies before Equity, it was, it's my way or the highway. Whereas at Camden, it's been a lot more of the, hey, let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens. You put it on paper, let's see if it floats. So I think that's what makes the culture a lot better than some of the companies out there that I worked with before Equity. So.
And you had an amazing career in the industry. A lot of people, a lot of young folks are looking up to people like you, because you're a role model, and they want to get where you are today. So I do want to ask you to walk us through what were the things that helped you get from a maintenance technician to a national director for one of the largest and best companies in the country. What were some things that you think that you did, or traits that you have that help you move up into the organizations and land all the way at the top?
That's a great question. One thing that I tell every new employee that comes into Camden, and when I was at Equity, I told them the same thing. It's about attitude. It's about attitude, and it's about drive. If you come in and you have a good attitude and you got a good work ethic, and you're competitive, then you can see consistent growth throughout your career. When I was a maintenance tech and I was scraping, caulking, I remember going to my boss and saying, listen, I'm a good soldier. I'll do what you want me to do. But at some point in time, I'd like to do a little bit more. and they gave me more. They said, all right, let's see what you got. And they gave me a shot to be able to manage the turn process at a 1,400 unit property. Some people might shy away from that and say, oh, that's too much. I'm not getting paid enough. But I took it as, okay, look, I'm going to cut my teeth. I'm going to show them what I got. But I'm also doing this under the supervision of a supervisor. So now I have guidance and I have support, and I'm not just being thrown to the wolves. And then as I, became more comfortable with, the turnover process, I set up a really good system, and every day we were turning as many units as possible. But our goal at every week was to get all of our turns done at a 1,400 unit property. It's a pretty big challenge. So, but my bosses knew I was hungry for more. So I think it's attitude, it's competitiveness, and it's communicating your goals. And if you communicate with your boss and say, look, this is what I want, and this is why I would like it, and this is why I'm good for it, and then you take some risks once in a while, then you can see really, really rapid growth. So
one of the things that it's talked about a lot in our industry in general nowadays is centralization, right? So I'd like to talk a little bit about centralization. First of all, I do want to ask the question, point blank, is it centralization possible in maintenance, and how much centralization can we do, in your opinion?
in my opinion, the residents are letting maintenance go in their apartment. The residents they have to trust the maintenance team that's going in their apartment and taking care of their possessions, and it's important. And so I think that we can centralize maybe PM work. We can centralize, if there's multiple properties within the same region, maybe centralizing those communities. So then that way we can be able to have economies of scale, and we can have multiple employees that maybe we have a couple guys or employees that are doing only HVAC work because they're very strong in HVAC work. Maybe we start centralizing, but they're still within the same little group of communities. I think that is a great way to be able to centralize. I struggle still finding a way to be able to centralize it over, a broader range. I think that residents still, and me as well. If I'm living out a community and I see maintenance employees, I want to be able to trust them, and I know them, and I know they know me, and that's a big piece of what we do as maintenance.
One of the things that comes to mind from a previous conversation we had was we're talking about access control locks, right? And you shared with me the fact that Camden went to a program to where they replace regular deadbolts with electronic locks that could be rekeyed, access could be controlled remotely, right? And I like to ask you about the project. How did it come about? Like how this idea came about, and secondly, how did it impact us? This is one of the few ways, in my opinion, that we could actually centralize maintenance. In other words, you could actually have this watched from up above. A single person could basically watch 10, 20, 50 properties at once and create access, delete access to the end users. And what that does is just not only saving technicians time from going back and forth to and from the office, dropping keys and pulling new keys. They could be on a property all day long and use their app on the phone to complete the service request. So that's a huge time saver. But then also you could avoid having a line of vendors waiting at the office for get a key to get access to an apartment. So I'd like you to tell us a little bit about how did this project came about, and what are the benefits, like if there are any benefits, right, to it. How do you like it? How do the site teams like it, if they do?
Yeah, great question. Like you said earlier, time management is the most important thing that we can teach our teams or give our teams. Giving them the gift of time. Every time I go to a property, groups of maintenance employees will tell me, I just wish there was more time in the day. And I wish there was more time in the day. But we all have to look at everything we do every single day. And we have to be able to say, am I using my time efficiently? And if you look at a garden style community, if the maintenance shop is on one side of the property and the office is on the other, how much time does it take to drive from the shop to the office, or from an apartment to the office? It might be 10 minutes. So if you go to an apartment, I know we've all been there where you drive to an apartment, you've got that key in your hand, and you get to the door and you put it in and it doesn't work. And now I got to go back to Handy Track or Key Track, and I have to sit there and figure out what's going on, and it's a mess. And so if you take 6 trips to the office and it takes 10 minutes on average, I mean, you do the math, right? That's an hour. I mean, that's a lot of time that could be used for tickets and turns. Now, I know a lot of property management companies out there are looking at it, and some of them are doing it. I know that, Kaba was a system that's been out there for a pretty long time. Now, we're using a platform with RealPage called Chirp, and it's great. The maintenance employees can go straight to a door. They can be able to open the app. They can be able to say, I need access to this apartment. And now it actually gives the resident a log as well, saying, Jason Fein was in your apartment on this day at this time. And that's fantastic. No, we never had this kind of visibility. The residents never had this visibility. They can change the PIN codes on their locks. So they can be able to change a PIN code and be able to, if they feel like their PIN code has been compromised, they can change it. You can walk up to the door, and when you're walking out, I don't know how many times you've had groceries in your arms, or you've got bags and kids, and you're trying to get out the door, and you're trying to get the key and put it in the door and lock it. With the locks that we chose, it's a Yale product. You can be able to actually put your hand on the lock and it locks it itself. It doesn't unlock that way, of course, but so you've got that benefit of the residents have the benefit of locking with their hand. They've got the PIN codes. They can use the app to unlock their door. They have the log. Our maintenance employees can walk up and they can check out a key for that apartment. They can get access into the unit. And it's great. I mean, during fire inspections, how many times have you had the big ring of keys, right? The ring of death is what I like to call it. I mean, you're sitting there you got a fire marshal standing behind you. You're trying to get in this apartment, and it's the end of the day. Your hands are sweaty. Maybe you wrote with a dry erase marker on the tag so you can figure out which key goes to which apartment. Now it's all wiped off, and so you're putting keys in doors. Come on, that's a lot of time wasted. Now all of a sudden, I can check out a key. I can open up the door. I can get the fire marshal in. We can go in. We can go out. We can do what we need to do. So I find this very beneficial. I think we're on the cusp of using technology for a lot of stuff. Smart thermostats, smart appliances. I envision the one day when appliances or HVAC units have a diagnostic tool where you can be able to patch in with your Bluetooth with your phone using an app, and it'll tell you got high head pressure, or you got this or that. And now all of a sudden we're saving time on our units. I use this analogy all the time. We have the ability to send a rocket up into space, and it comes and it lands back down on the same pad. But I got to sit there and try to figure out what's wrong with my defrost timer for 20 minutes, right? Like, we should be able to have some sort of diagnostic tool on our fridges that tells us what's wrong, or on our washing machines, so we can cut the time down for troubleshooting. We can be more effective. So I'm excited about the future of maintenance. So
we've been sending rockets in space for 60, 70 years, right? It's about time. It's about time to bring some of that action into maintenance, right?
That'd be great.
Just a tiny piece.
A little bit.
Yeah, because it's about small increments, small progress, right? A little bit at a time. Going back to the time that it saves the teams, how much time per day do you estimate that your centralized key system saves each employee? Gives how much time are you giving them back to their day by just not having to handle keys?
Maybe 40 minutes a day. That's being conservative, I think, because I just told you, if it takes 10 minutes to get to the office to go get a key or to get something, if you get a great maintenance employee that they're going to a service request, or they have a bulk of service requests, they get some buckets, they put them in the back of the golf cart, they get enough parts to be able to go do their job, and then they have all the tools, and then if they have complete access to every single apartment, and they don't have to go to the office at all, and then if you pair that up with mobile service request systems, so then we don't have to print anything off, or we don't have to go back to the office and close out tickets. If you pair all that technology together and efficiency, now you could be saving an hour per day. So That, in my opinion.
For some of the audience that don't know you very well, Jason, I do wanted to say that you're also a podcast host, just like I am. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your podcast. Was it the name? How did it started? What type of topics do you do you like to to have? What is it? What is it about? And how can someone be a guest on your podcast?
Yeah, I was working with the Texas Apartment Association. They have a maintenance group, and we get on once a month, and we talk about different things in the industry, and we have different partners on the call as well. I know HD Supply is on there and some other vendors. And one day I was asked to join. There's a Hints from HR podcast, and so I joined, and we talked about maintenance hiring. And during the maintenance hiring conversation, I said it helps when the office team knows how they know how to speak maintenance. That's exactly what I said. I said it's great when the office knows how to speak maintenance, because if they understand maintenance and they understand what they're going through, then they can help and they can assist, and they can make sure that they're not hindering the maintenance team from doing their job, and will be more productive because of it. And it just triggered conversations, and then we started having these podcasts where it's how to speak maintenance, and it's once a month. It's the last Wednesday of every month. It's on LinkedIn, it's on Facebook Live, and we have different guests on. We'll have an office guest and we'll have a maintenance guest, and we talk about the impact we have on each other and how the office team can help support maintenance groups. So that's our focus. It's a lot of fun. Becca Ramadi's a great co-host. If you're listening, Becca, give you a plug.
Becca is awesome. I hope she's listening.
There you go.
This episode. So you did mention hiring, right? Of finance personnel and talent. We all, as an industry, I think, have our challenges with bringing in new blood, with hiring people, with retaining people. So what are some things that, we're not doing the way we should? What are some areas of improvement that we as an industry in the recruiting part? And then let's go and move it forward to once we recruit and we get that person into the door, retaining that person. So let's start with the recruiting. What are some areas of improvement that you see for us? What can we do better?
Sure. I think we're all having the same challenge with getting tenured maintenance employees to come apply. The tenured maintenance employees that are well trained and great with residents, they're being taken care of at their current companies. So they're not out and about. Companies are trying to retain them as much as possible. We are getting a lot more green employees that are coming in, people that are saying, you know what, I've heard about this industry, let me check it out. If you have to try to figure out what your pipeline is. I think everybody puts things out on Indeed, or they have their own company websites, and I've heard of some companies where on the back of the business cards they put something about the career link for their website. And so when you're out at a restaurant or you're walking through a property, you can throw your card at somebody and say, hey, I think you have a great attitude, and you might be really a good fit for our company. So here's a card. On the back is a QR code. That's a pipeline, right? Now you're seeing people out in the field. If you go to trade schools. Trade schools are a neat way to be able to maybe tap into some people that are learning a skill, like HVAC work or maybe plumbers. I know that they might have a vision of starting their own HVAC company and they don't know about the apartment industry. I think one of the things that is attractive about the apartment industry or the multifamily housing industry versus the trades is it's not as cyclical, right? It's very, we got people living in homes, we got to take care of them. So during recessions and during pandemics, we got to take care of residents still, so there's still work. So that's pretty attractive. So there's perks. Got to tell these newcomers coming in, and we got to get out in the field and try to find ways to attract talent. Once they're in the door, we got to make sure they're trained, right? So I think one of the things that I had growing up in my career was you get in the door and they've had this open position for 6 months, right? And what do? Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here. Here's your keys. Here's a site map. Here's some service requests. Here's an app to get you in the door. Hit the ground running, buddy. I mean, that's amazing. That's how it was for a lot of my career. And I know it's the same for a lot of people coming in because some positions have been open a long time. So we got to make sure that we ease them in, like ease them into the company, like give them time to breathe. I mean, they've just shaken up their whole world. And now all of a sudden, day one, you're going to throw them into a bunch of videos or, make them take a bunch of tests or you're just going to throw them straight into service requests. One of the great parts about Camden is we sat down and we started an onboarding program, and it's 11 weeks. And we break the whole maintenance technician position down into chunks. So then that way we can see you. How do you do with electrical? How do you do with plumbing? Let's ease you into it. Let's have you shadow the other maintenance team members. Now you get to make friends with the people that you're working with, and you get to know them personally. We show you around, show you how to shut off the water in case of an emergency. Show you where all the breaker panels are. So over 11 weeks, we're really kind of slowly getting you in there. You're going to do tickets and you'll do turns once in a while, but we really want to kind of slow it down a little bit. Then once you're here, we got to figure out ways to be able to empower our supervisors to train our employees. There's nothing worse than just coming to work every day and you do your tickets, you do your turns, you go home, and you don't learn. If you ever look back at your group, your team, and you're like, how did I advance my group this year? And if the answer is not, I didn't do anything for them, they came to work and did tickets and turns, then we need to do better. We need to do better. And we got to take them and sit them down and say, hey, you know what? I know you're not the best at HVAC work. I got an HVAC ticket. Come with me. Let me show you some tricks. Let me show you some stuff. Let me teach you. I challenge my maintenance supervisors all the time. Hey, if you got some green technicians and we have our own proctors for EPA certifications, let's get them EPA certified so they can work with Freon. And then let's start easing them into the process, right? So, hey, I got to change out this AC unit. I'm going to teach you how to recover refrigerant. That's all you're going to do. I'm just going to teach you how to recover refrigerant today, right? And then the next time, I'll give you the next step and the next step. And guess what? Over time, you're going to build your knowledge. We can't just sit them down in front of an AC unit for 8 hours and say, this is how it works, and this is how electricity flows through the system, and this is a contact. You can't do that. Like, they're not going to retain it. So we got to give it in pieces. We got to make sure they understand that it's okay for them to learn slowly. But over time, they will get it. And if at the end of the year, now all of a sudden they're replacing AC units and troubleshooting, and they're using their meters and their gauges, and oh man, that's cool stuff. So it's a combination, right? Have the right pipeline. Long answer for short. You got to have a good pipeline. Got to make sure that we ease them in the first couple months, and then after they're here, let's engage them, empower them, and move them, and give them more knowledge. So then that way they feel like they're growing. So.
No, I love this long answer because it tells the story of why Camden is successful, right? Part of the story, of course, is not the entire story, but I've been dying to get to have a conversation, especially public conversation with someone from your company, because year after year you're over there up top of most greatest companies to work for, best companies to work for. So I know that in order to stay up on the top, at the top, you must be doing something right, and those are great examples. Those are some things that I've implemented throughout my career on and off, and I know that they bear results, significant results. How about retention, Jason? What are some things that I think we could do better in this as an industry to shut the back door, to close the back door on people once they coming in? And what are some things that you have done yourself and your company in order to improve employee retention on the maintenance side?
Yeah, I think it's if I just come to work every day and I do the same function, if I make a widget every single day, but I don't see a vision for my future. For me personally, I can only do that for so long, and then at some point in time, I'm going to start to say, all right, well, you know what? I'm going to start looking somewhere else. But imagine if I was making that widget every day, and my boss was like including me in bigger conversations. And my boss was, this is why we built the widget, and this is where the widget goes, and maybe showed me how I have an impact on the bottom line, and maybe they gave me a pathway and said, hey, Jason, here's some things you can do over the next 6 months that can help you learn the next level in your career. And there's no promise that you'll do these things over the next 6 months and then you're gonna get a promotion. But guess what? I'm gonna teach you some things, and when you'll be ready for when that promotion comes along. That engages me, and I know that engages our maintenance employees, is having them be a part of the bigger picture. Give them some kudos. Let them get some wins, right? When I was a maintenance supervisor, I had a maintenance tech, and I remember he came to me and he said, I'm really green. I was working at a deli before. And I was like, all right, that's fine. I said, but I could feel like he had a great attitude and he wanted to learn, and he had some basic knowledge and basic tools. So we hired him, and I told him, I said, I made up a position. I said, you're going to be the make ready coordinator. So I'm going to put you in charge of the whole make ready process. You're going to be in charge of it, and it's going to be your win. If you can get these things done and you can make sure these apartments are turned fast and they look great and the residents are happy, that's all you. And he was excited, and he wanted me to stay out of his business. I was, as a supervisor, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to come over. I'm going to grab this turn. He's like, no, I have a plan for that turn. Leave that turn alone. And then I had another guy who was in charge of the tickets, and same thing. Like if he won an award based off of search requests or turns, then that was his win. That wasn't mine. And that, as leaders, that's what we need to do. We got to make sure that we're giving them the kudos. They did the work. We're just inspiring them and removing roadblocks. So if he just came to work every day and painted walls and turned apartments and didn't have a future, like, guess what? I don't think he'd be around much longer. And that's how it is. There was a team. Another thing I believe that closes the back doors is the feeling of teamwork and camaraderie. There was a property that I remember, it's in Virginia, and I remember the first time I walked the property, and at lunchtime, somebody got on the radio, and there was like this really long saying that they did. And I was like, what was that? And they said, oh, that's the lunch call. I said, what's the lunch call? They said, at lunch at 12 o'clock, there's this one guy, and the whole team had been there for like 20 years, 15, 20 years. Like after the average tenure for the maintenance technicians at that property. And they said at 12 o'clock every day, he does that call, and everybody comes down and they all go down to the shop and they eat together and they enjoy time together. And it's mandatory. Like it's not split up lunches. It's nothing. If there's an emergency, we'll pull out a lunch and we'll go take care of it. But if there's no emergencies, we're taking an hour-long lunch break and we're all doing it together and we're going to eat together. Honestly, I feel like teams that eat together, they stay together. They really do. And because now you're not just employees doing these functions. You're actually human beings. And I get to know you, and you get to know me. I remember another team, I walked in on a Thursday, I think it was, and it was lunchtime, and they had this whole table, and it was like a potluck, and everybody brought in food from where they were from or foods that they loved, and they all shared, and it was every Thursday, everybody, you just made one pot of something and you just brought it in and they just sat and ate. And so I feel like that, to me, it helped the teams gel, and it helped the teams be closer, and they didn't want to leave. They didn't want to, because then they have to build something out. They have to meet new people, and maybe they didn't like the people as much as they like these people. So another long answer. I love talking about people and teamwork, and I think food, and I think having a vision for the future can help make sure that people want to stay.
Very powerful stories.
Yeah, thanks.
Powerful stories. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
You did mention the onboarding process and how you feed your new employees a little bit at a time, right? Instead, like dumping on them and just say, here's 1,000 work orders, like do this. During the onboarding, I wanted to ask you, is there any section right there where they being paired with a peer coach or someone that's senior with the company, or are they doing any part of the onboarding offsite, like not at the site that they're working? Is that part of your onboarding or not?
There's a lot of different onboarding programs. I like it when if the community is like chaotic, right? then I highly recommend having the person go offsite and go to a quieter property and be able to get a day or two to see the company and to get to know the people in a non-chaotic environment, because that happens sometimes. Every community, every company has, maybe one property that it's a little bit older and there's just a lot of stuff going on. Maybe it's a student property and they got all the move-ins or something. So it's important to be able to make sure that they get time with a mentor, and we have a mentor program like that, and it's great. They come out and they sit down and they say, hey, how can I help you? What can I show you? And they make sure that the person is comfortable. I honestly like the onboarding program. I like the idea of other peers, other maintenance technicians on the team helping onboard that person, because if it's just somebody from outside of the property coming over and mentoring this person, then they go away. But I'm still here every day for 5 days a week with this group of people. I want to get to know them. I want to know them, and I want them to know me. I want to feel comfortable. So I think it's important that any onboarding program also involves the technicians at the property and groundskeepers or everybody, so we can even leasing. If leasing can come and be with me and show me some tricks and stuff, that'd be great.
You mentioned during the conversation how the employees are being trained a little bit at a time, certain tasks. What should training look like in 2023 for the apartment industry on the maintenance side? What should maintenance training look like in 2023 in your vision? How do you envision the ideal training for maintenance?
Yeah, great question. So I feel like maintenance employees, myself included, we're very proud, right? We get a job, we get in, we're proud. We don't want to say, yeah, I got the job, but I'm not really certain with this, or I struggle with that. I don't get that a lot. And we got to find ways to be able to uncover the hidden training needs of a maintenance employee. And we can do it in a way that it doesn't make them vulnerable. It doesn't make them feel like they're exposing themselves and they're going to get fired. And that's kind of why we started building the onboarding program. So then in the first week or the second week, when we're doing plumbing, let's go to an apartment. Let me show you a shutoff. Let me show you how the water flows through the apartment. Let me show you what an angle stop is. For somebody that's seasoned, if I open up the cabinet and I say, here's an angle stop, and they're like, yeah, it's a compression fitting, and this is how it goes on, right? Now all of a sudden I know that employee knows what they're talking about, and they've been around plumbing a little bit, right? So now maybe I make a note, and it'd be great if it was on some sort of electronic platform that says, Steve is my new maintenance tech, and he knows what he's doing when it comes to plumbing. And then by Friday, maybe by Thursday, I start to get a little bit more in depth, right? Maybe we start talking about brazing. Maybe we start talking about sweating. Maybe I take him to the shop and I give him a piece of pipe and we see how what is he good at sweating? Does he understand the glue time on CPVC pipe, right? Does he understand those things? And if he does, then I'm like, great, sign off on it. But then maybe I get to the electrical section and I say, here's meter. This is how we read volts. Like, this is how you test a receptacle. And they're like, oh, show me that again. If we could take that information, now we can put it on a centralized platform. Maybe at the end of that 11 months, I have a really good understanding of Steve or my maintenance tech, right? Or Rebecca. And I can be able to say, Steve or Rebecca is my new technician, and they're really good. Here's the things that they're great at, and here's the things that they're struggling with. And if we can take that information and then build a prescriptive training program for that person. And then if I have maintenance trainers, or if I have a group of learning and development people within our company, and they have that and they're armed with that information, I envision one day as a maintenance services director, or you yourself can pull into a property in the parking lot, open up a sheet or open up an app and say, at this property, I've got Rebecca, Tim, Steve, and Carl, right? And now I can see, Carl's struggling with plumbing. In his last annual review, it looks like the manager is saying that they shy away from giving him plumbing tickets because he's slow and he takes a lot of time. You know what? Instead of just going here and looking at a leak and then walking out the door, I'm going to grab Carl. I'm going to find Carl. I'm going to bring him with me, and I'm going to show him, a little bit about plumbing. Maybe I go build a class, and I look at, maybe I can filter by my entire company. I can say, who are all the people that need plumbing? And now all of a sudden I know it's Rebecca, Steve, Carl, and over here it's Trevor, Tiffany, and Heather, right? I grab that whole group, bring them over to a property, and we do a class just for them. Because that's that's going to be the right way to train. If I just do a training class and I say, hey, everybody, we're going to have a plumbing class on the 14th. If you're interested, let me know. Of course, some people might be like, what, a day with pay off site, and I just get to go sit in the training room, air conditioned. Maybe there are people that do that. I used to be a trainer. I used to sit there and train, and I could see it in their eyes, like, why am I here? Why are you here? I don't want you to waste your time. I'd rather find a class that engages you and gets you excited. So maybe it's a soft skills thing. So I see digital platforms, something that has a list of every employee and what sort of training we need to give them. There's data being pulled in from reviews, like from their managers and from their supervisors. So now I've got great actionable items that I can implement training on and elevate all my people. Like, that's how I see training in the future.
Amazing. So basically building employee profiles
Yeah.
that are telling you everything you need to know about the employee. So you just pull it up on your phone, and you know who this person is, like from a professional standpoint, right? What their strengths are, their areas of improvement.
Yeah. And maybe they have an ability to go into it as well and say, here's my aspirations for the future. So now all of a sudden I know what their goals are for the future. I know, what sort of training their supervisors want to give them. Come on. Once again, I can shoot a rocket up into space and make it land on the same pad, but I can't come up with an app that has a training program for all my people.
We we touched a little bit on technology, and I wanted to stop and make it the next topic of the conversation. So typically when technology for multifamily is developed, and maintenance goes there too, right? Technology tech that's applicable to the maintenance field. Companies hire great salespeople so they could go out and sell the product, and they hire code writers, people that write code. And those two groups of people are basically developing this product, and they're taking it to the market. It goes all the way up to the top of the companies, because they're not going to go to sell them at the sites. And they have the conversation in a meeting room with president, vice president, CEO of the company, and they're doing the sales pitch. Now, the way it happens is to get a sale. That person is impressed by what they see, and they're saying, yeah, this makes sense. We have to have this product for our maintenance teams. Now, most of the times, that person has no maintenance background. So they never been the end user for that particular, application. It's just like, they're looking at something, it's a shiny object, and we gotta have it. We gotta have it because it is shiny, it looks great, it has all the bells and whistles. Our teams are gonna love it. But are they going to love it? That's the real question. So the end user input doesn't exist typically, right? They're not building the products with the end user in mind. This is one issue. The second issue is the way we roll out as an industry. Like, that person makes the decision and it says, okay, we're buying this product, we're launching on October the 1st. And the company has like 100 or 300 communities throughout the country. Mm-hmm. October 1st, we're going to have some training, 2-3 sessions, and we're going live, man. Okay. So there's no consideration about trying it on a smaller group of properties, maybe 3 or 5 or 10. Work out for 3 or 6 months, see what's working, what's not, using end user input to maybe improve, work out the kinks. Instead, we roll it out, and then 6 months later, we get low adoption rates. Like, people are not embracing the new technology, and everybody struggles. So instead, helping the process, saving time, making it more efficient for our team members, actually is the other way around. People are hating it, and it's just creating like one more task. They see it as a chore. Oh, there's another chore that I gotta do. I gotta use this app. So does this sound familiar to you as what's happening in an industry? And what can we do to change things, to improve the process? First of all, do you agree with what I just said?
If you use a big bang implementation process, then you're not going to get the adoption rates. If you are looking for buy-in, I'm a big fan of pilots, running a pilot. And so at Camden, I'm involved in a lot of the meetings with the vendors that come in and they're trying to sell us things, and which is great, right? So that goes back to, what is Camden doing to try to engage their people? Instead of it just being a room with CEOs and CFOs, they're entrusting myself and the SVPs and RVPs and some directors and managers to like listen to this person, give them some feedback, and maybe we do a pilot in a market. We're always trying out new things at Camden, and I know that you can't just do the big bang philosophy. You just can't just flip a switch and everybody gets it. You need to get a specific market, and maybe you get a market that might not have good adoption, but you try to see, what would it take to get them to adopt it? If you take the market that will embrace whatever it is you're trying to roll out, then of course they're going to be super excited and they're going to be ramped up and they're like, yeah, it's the best. But if they're one region and the other 75% of your company is, they hate technology and they don't, like new things, then yeah, the pilot's going to look awesome. And then you're going to roll it out to their 75 and they're going to be like, why don't you ask me? So it's important that you do a pilot and you get some good feedback, and you try to see if you can work with the developer to make it a little bit more end user friendly. I'm a big fan of technology. Like I said, I think that there's a future where we use more technology to track PMs and track maintenance on equipment. I think that it has to be less clicks, though. It has to be fewer clicks. It can't be multiple apps. I think that there's a world with QR codes, and sorry about that. And the QR code takes us straight to an app or a website, right? And now, if I'm at an RTU and I click my camera, open my camera, scan the QR code, it takes me to that website. It takes me right to where I have to fill out the information. Now, as a maintenance tech, with there being zero time in the day available to do extra stuff, I have to now all of a sudden I get straight to the point. I get to that website, I fill out the information. Now it's logged, right? And I can move and I can keep going. Time is a valuable resource. And you have to make it sure that whatever you're rolling out, you work with the developer and you let them know what could help your company, do a pilot, and then now all of a sudden you've got people within the company that are bought in, and they can help with the implementation and they can help with the training in the other markets. So I hope that helps answer the question.
Yeah, a whole lot. I think we're speaking the same language. We're on the same page as far as how this should be built. The product should be built and implemented as well. Jason, I want to switch gears a little bit and go and ask you to share a pivotal moment or experience that significantly influenced your career trajectory from the maintenance technician to your current leadership role. What was like one moment that you would pick that really changed things for you and like rocket ship your trajectory towards where you are today?
I think it's been a couple of moments, and what I think it is it's been these moments where there was a position somewhere else and it was going to take uprooting my family and moving them to a different city. That's what's helped move my career. I actually started in California, and I was I grew to be a maintenance director out there, and I wanted to be a facilities manager. That was my goal. And I remember asking my boss, how do I become a facilities manager? And they said, well, you need high-rise experience. And I said, we only have garden style properties here. I don't understand how I'm going to get high-rise experience when all we own is garden style. And they said, well, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for somebody with high-rise experience. And so I had to look inside and be able to see, like, how flexible am I? And when I started looking around, my company, the Equity, we had properties on the East Coast that were high-rise buildings. They had booster pump systems, they had boilers, they had all that stuff. And then a spot came open on the East Coast in DC. And so I remember driving home and I had the job application and I had the position and I was sweating the whole ride home. I was just like, how am I going to talk to my wife? We're having a kid, how am I going to do this? And it was a long night and I just sit there and we had to do the whole pros and cons list. And I had to, we were in LA at the time. And so I was like, hey, you hate it here. It's smoggy. It's nasty. Like, what? We've never been to DC. Let's try it out. So once my wife signed off and I went out and we figured out moving details and I moved to DC and I got the opportunity to work on some high-rise buildings. So that was a pivotal moment for me, right? And then, there was other opportunities that kind of came up and I've seen people not take those opportunities. Maybe it was a money thing. Maybe it was a commuting thing. They were just like, well, it's 5 minutes on my commute or it's not enough extra money. I remember one move I made, it was to a facilities position. And I remember that I went through the interview process and everything was great. And then they said, we want to give you the spot, but we're not going to give you any extra money. It's kind of a lateral move. And I said, all right, that's fine. I said, but in 6 months, after I show you what I can do, then I'd like to have the opportunity to talk about compensation. And they were fine with it. And that was a great way to do it, right? Instead of me saying, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to take it unless I get more money. I said, all right, that's fine. I understand there's budgets, but like at some point in time, let's sit down and talk about it. And those are the moves that I've made that have helped kind of get me in the right spot. And then when I was in DC, I had the opportunity to talk to Camden, and they said at some point in time, if you want to join our company, we need you to move to Houston. So once again, driving home, I got 2 kids now, one starting high school in a year, my daughter's in middle school. It was a lot. And I knew my wife was going to be like, I don't want to move my kids. I don't want to do this. I want to do that. But it was a great opportunity to do what I'm doing today. So we all agreed. We moved my son, is going from middle school into high school. So it was kind of a clean break. And then they're loving it here in Texas. So those are the moves.
You got to go where the action is. Yeah. In order to grow.
Yep. Agreed.
Could you share a specific instance where a mentor or influential figure played a role in shaping your career decisions or approach to leadership?
Definitely. I think that there's a lot of times where we take the best maintenance technician, somebody that comes to work, you give them 20 tickets at lunchtime, they come back and they give you 20 tickets, right? That you're like, oh my gosh, this guy, this person is amazing. And we need to promote them to be a supervisor right now. And I've seen it a lot of times where we take that person and we move them into a leadership position. And I had this really great guy. He was a technician, and then he got promoted really fast and he became a supervisor. And I remember he wasn't walking his building and he wasn't taking care of the mechanicals. His ticket count was really low and his turns were getting done very fast, right? And so to me, what was he doing? He was doing what he's used to doing. You come to work, you do your tickets and turns, you do everything that's on your dashboard, and you go home. No one had ever taught him like all of the pieces, the managerial pieces, walking your building, opening doors, pushing buttons, making sure the AC in your elevator machine room is still working. It's things like that. And so I went to him and I said, hey, we need to talk about this. And he said, listen, Jason, just tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it. And that was a moment that I was like, gotcha, that he's still stuck in technician mode. And I went through that as well. I was a technician and people said, here's 30 jobs. And I was like, great. I was gone. I was running, just doing things. And then when I became a supervisor, I remember I had some doors. Somebody did it a capital project and they put these doors on the side of the building. But in the capital project, they didn't paint the doors and they used T111. And so they had these T111 doors. They didn't paint them, and they put it on me. And so I came to work, and I was like, okay, one day I'm going to get to paint those doors. And I remember the supervisor, and I was really young. My boss came to me. He said, hey, when are you going to paint these doors? And I said, I'm going to get to it. I promise. I just got a lot of tickets and turns, and it's myself and this other guy. And he was like, okay, we'll get it done. Week after week went by, and I was like trying to make time to paint these doors. And he said, listen, Jason, you're getting yourself in a pickle here. Those doors are untreated. The weather's starting to deteriorate the wood. We need to seal the wood. You got to make time for this. And we had a whole conversation about earmarking time. Put it on your calendar. Tell your bosses, like on these days, from this time to this time, I cannot be bothered with anything else. I have to paint these doors. And that's one of the things that has stuck with me is put it, whatever it is, like put it on your calendar, make time for it, whether it's training, whether it's learning a new skill, whether it's learning how to cook. I don't know, whatever it is that you want to do, but you just can't find the time for it. Make time for it, put it on your calendar, and try to see if you can like earmark it and say, nah, nothing else is happening during this time. I'm trying to teach my kids that stuff right now too. Make time for your future, come up with a plan, earmark time during your week to sit down and actually make time for it. So then that way you don't look at through a week and go, I did my tickets and turns, but I never painted those doors. And now I'm in trouble. I look like I'm not doing everything I'm supposed to do. So that was the best piece of advice I got. What was yours? This isn't just a time for me to talk. What was your best piece of advice?
So pieces of advice that I like to share, right, with me moving up is noticing that there's certain things that most people don't want to do. Mm-hmm. I noticed that people will avoid at any cost. They'll drag their feet, they'll try to put it on somebody else, or they just completely ignore, hoping that either it's gonna take care of by itself or somebody else hopefully will like see that and take care of it. And I noticed that there's value in actually being the person that actually goes the other way, against the mainstream, right? You go the other way, and you're the one that picks up the piece of treasure nobody else wants to, gets dirty when nobody else wants to, raise their hand and volunteers when nobody else wants to. And those were like things that really catapulted my career, because you put yourself into that top 1-3% of the people that want to do what nobody else wants to, and it makes you very valuable. People start noticing that, and then next time there's an opportunity coming around, you'll be top of the mind. You'll be top of the mind. Make yourself visible too, right? We're living in 2023 nowadays, and it doesn't matter if you're someone that it's already in a leadership role like you and I are, or you're a groundskeeper. You could still build your visibility. You have to learn your trade, right? I do want to say this because people might misconstruct, might take this as, okay, we're just gonna build a personal brand and we're gonna make everything look shiny, but then we suck at our job. You can't suck at your job and think that building a great personal brand will help with that, because it's kind of like selling something that is not. So get great at your job, and at the same time, let the world know who you are. So it's two components right here. I've done this throughout my career, and I'll say with amazing results. Some things that I was able to accomplish, I'm looking back and I'm just so thankful. And sometimes it seems like it's been surreal, an incredible journey for me, right? With incredible results. I meet people all over the country that are just basically coming up to me and saying, hey, I know you from LinkedIn. Like, it's amazing, right? So what's happening in 2023 is definitely, like I said, you have to know what you're talking about in your field. You really have to build a very strong skill set and be great at what you do. But on top of that, just complement that with visibility, right? Get visible. That's the reason why, why start the conversations like the one, we have today. not just for my personal sake, just for my own visibility, but I like to bring visibility to what you and I do. When you look back, 4 or 5 years back, 10 years back, if you remember what happened at the time on LinkedIn, for example, because that's the platform for professionals. So let's take LinkedIn. The only people that would will write things about maintenance on LinkedIn would be people that have never done maintenance. There'll be executives or trainers or speakers in the industry. So I said to myself, why not me? Because I'm the one that, it's doing it or has done that. Why not be the practitioner and also the person that talks about it? The struggles that we have, the challenges that we have, the areas of opportunity. And that's part of the reason why I started the podcast, to have conversations with individuals like you and actually show the world like what is possible, right? If you and I were not, I don't think, I don't consider myself an extraordinary person, right? I'm just a regular guy. I know that I show up every day. I do my very best. I do the best that I can, and the rest always work itself out. But I do want to show everybody else in the world out there that if you and I can, were able to make it in this world, it's something out there, a piece for everyone. And that's I think what's important. It's also, like I said, for me, legacy is important too. What do we leave behind? How do we help people that have no one to turn to? Let's just, speak the truth here. Reality is that a lot of companies don't have the structure where the culture is not a culture of trust, where individuals at the site level, they could pick up the phone and call their director and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. So they're in a position where they have no one to turn to. They don't know where to go to get answers. Well, that's the reason why I bring individuals like you, very accomplished professionals, and others at this level to tell their stories. Because if someone is going to watch this episode, I'm sure that they're going to have a lot of takeaways that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. This is the only place where they could get, or one of the few places, right? I'm not trying to make this like a unique, it's like just something like out of this world that I'm doing here.
No,
so
I think it'd be great. You got to expose this stuff, and you're doing a good job.
we have to, like, look, we're not gonna make things better for us, for the industry, unless we start talking about it, right? That's the first step. Let's start talking about it. And also, let's not get stuck into the mindset of just talking about it. Once we talk about it, we identify the issues, let's identify solutions, and let's go to execute. Okay? Because that's another thing too. What do they call that? Analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
Right? We keep analyzing and, we never get to execute.
Yep.
So very long answer right here. Very long answer, but
great answer though.
definitely this is something that I've noticed that helped me throughout my career, and had great people to look up to, always. Like I've been extremely fortunate to have amazing people to look up to.
Yeah.
Jason, I do want to ask you a question now. How do you get to be efficient in managing, overseeing assets that are located throughout the country, right? You're not present to all places, you're not ubiquitous. You're not in 20 places at once, right? You're only in one place at one time. How are you able to do this successfully from where you live, from one location at a time? Yeah, in an organization that has assets all over the country. What are some things or techniques that you would like to share about your success with
organizational skills? Organizational skills is what will set you apart from everybody else. So for myself, when I visit a market, I use OneNote. So when I'm walking properties, I open up OneNote and I have folders for every community. And so I write little notes, things that I notice when I'm walking, things about the people, things about the market, and even specific maintenance needs. And then after I'm done with that walk, I'm able to take my team that's in that city and be able to work with them and come up with ideas to try to fix those issues. And then it's follow-up, right? I mean, if I just go walk a property and I say, hey, okay, you guys got some issues, here's some ideas, and then I walk away, am I being an effective leader, or am I helping this team at all? They told me a problem, I said, yeah, it's a problem, and then I left. I want to be the person that I go to a city, I go to a market, I walk a property, they tell me that there's a problem that's plaguing them and keeping them up at night. I want to be able to help kind of push, and I want to give my team the information that they need to be able to help make sure that it gets fixed. Last week I was in DC and I was walking some properties, and there was a community that said that over the past 3 months, their fire alarm system has just been having supervisory problems and issues with the high-low limit switch on the dry sprinkler system. And it was just alarms are going off. And the team, whoever's on call, was like, oh, great, here it goes. I'm just going to get played with calls. And so they've been doing this for 3 months. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to come back tomorrow and I want to sit down with you guys and let's have the vendor come, our monitoring company, come and give us a list of all of the calls for the past 3 months. So they did. They came over and they gave us the list. We put it in Excel, and then we sorted it, and we figured out building issues. We figured out what the problems were, and the vendor was there. And so this week we got proposals for 3 of the fixes that are going to help solve probably about 80% of those calls. And now my team, my local team in that city, is going to take those proposals, go to the right teams, and say, hey, we need to do this fix. This is a capital, this is an operating thing. But if we do this, it's going to stop overtime. It's going to help with employee morale, because people are just being plagued with, calls. And I have it on just like I said before, you got to earmark stuff, right? So what I did is on my calendar for tomorrow, I have a little tickler that says, hey, call your team in DC and find out what's going on with the fire alarm system. So I feel like now I've made an impact, right? Now I've made an impact. I went to a market, I listened, I heard what their problems were, I came up with solutions, I gave it to my team, and I have team members in those cities. And now I'm going to be organized, and I'm going to follow up with them later on. And then next time I go to DC, I'm going to remember that. I'm going to go to that property, and I'm going to say, hey, how are things going? Are things better? Are they worse? Like, have they improved? And hopefully the team looks at me and says, oh my gosh, that was amazing. That was so cool. When I go on property walks, I don't want to just walk and do the dog and pony show. I'm watching maintenance team members as they're walking around the property. Like, do they have the right tools? Do they have the right items? Do they need anything? Right. And I remember last week, I think it was Tuesday, walked in this property, and this maintenance employee he had an old luggage cart. It's a high-rise building, so they have those luggage carts that the residents can use, and it was falling apart. So clearly what happened is the office team had these brand new luggage carts. They didn't know what to do with the old luggage carts. They gave them the maintenance employees. The maintenance employees had rigged it up somehow with some like wood to hold it together still, and he was going to go do an AC ticket. And he had a recovery machine, and he had Freon on it, and he had his tools hanging from it, and it was like moving all over the place, and it was falling apart. And I stopped him and I said, do you guys have any carts? Like, do you guys need some big Rubbermaid carts? And the guy said, oh my God, that would be amazing. Like, this thing is falling apart. And I said, look, you're at a really nice property. If you go to a Four Seasons hotel, do you see maintenance employees walking around with, carts that are falling apart? And then they've taken wood and like rigged it up so it still stays together. They're like, no, you don't see that at Four Seasons. I was like, okay, are you a Four Seasons, or are you a mom and pop hotel on the side of the freeway? And they're like, I'm a Four Seasons. I was like, great, let's do this. It's like, we went online, we found the carts that he wanted and that he needed. It was going to be a capital expense because it was over a certain threshold. So I called the facilities guy. I said, hey, what? I'm going to buy these 2 carts. It's going to cost about $600. They're really nice carts. These guys are using dilapidated old luggage carts. Let's get it for them. And he was like, okay, that makes sense. I said, great. So I turned to the guy, I said, order the carts. And he was like, great. I stopped by the next day and he had the carts. And I said, let's put them together. Let's put them together right now. I mean, so I'm a national guy, right? And I'm out in a city. Do I do the dog and pony show and just walk around? Or do I actually spend some time and like make a difference? And when I leave, they're like, wow, Jason comes on board and all of a sudden he gets me carts, or he figures out what's going on with my fire alarm system, and now all of a sudden I can sleep at night, right? And I have people in those cities, and I empower them to do the same thing. So that's the secret to my success. Like, that's what I try to do every day, and I got to stay organized. I've got paper, and I've got, my phone, and I've got apps that I use, and I got my inbox. So between the three of those things, I feel like I'm like an octopus. I'm like I'm like able to do 8 different things all at the same time.
Yes, an amazing conversation. I truly appreciate the time you got to spend with me this morning.
Thank you.
In closing, I'd like to give you the opportunity to say something you wish you would have said, had the opportunity to say, or, maybe answer a question you wish I would have asked and I didn't get to ask.
For the listeners, I think one of the questions that I always kind of mull in my head, it's like young people. I've got a child in college right now, and I've got a child in that she's a junior in high school, and they're starting to go into the working world. And I remember back when I was a kid coming out of high school, and I remember my parents were beating into my head, right? Like, you got to go to college. Like, that's the only way you can be successful. My friends were beating it in my head. Oh, I'm going to the best college. I'm gonna have the best job. I look back and I'm like, you know what? Does having a college degree really equate to your success in the future? Or is it hard work? Is it determination? Is it job experience? Right? Like, I think it's a combination of the two. I have my degree. I did go get my degree, and has it helped me? Like, I've never had a boss say, "Oh, you have a bachelor's degree. Congratulations. Here's your promotion." Like, it's never been that way. And my boss in my last company, no degree whatsoever. He actually went to trade school, and he was a groundskeeper, and he worked his way up to VP. So I like the conversation. Maybe that's another topic that we can earmark for the future, is, real world experience versus college, degrees, and how this maintenance industry has an impact on that, and how, guys like us, did we need degrees, or do we not need degrees to be able to get to the positions that we're in? I'm telling my team that they don't need it. Like, if you want to go back to school, you want to learn some stuff, great, by all means do it. Our company has, education reimbursement programs and stuff like that. And, but do you need it? That's a good question. I think I'd love to get on another call with you about that one.
Let's make a point to circle back and just do a podcast just on this, because there's a lot of traction that I'm getting from posts like this, saying, is this necessary? Is it necessary to, to accumulate a lot of student debt and, come out with a degree that might not have a lot of applicability in the real world? Or is it actually better to take an apprenticeship and learn and get paid at the same time? And, 4 years later, you're maybe in a way better position than someone that went to college for something that, they can get a good paying job for. So I like to make this like exclusive top of a topic of a conversation for a future podcast, and let's find the time to actually get back here, because I think it'll be extremely important for our audience to hear from us, right? The way we came up in the industry, and what do we advise? I have people that reach out to me all the time and, ask me, do I need certifications? Do I need to go to school so I could, get to where you are today? My answer is the same as yours, right? No, you don't. You actually don't. But again, I'm not saying people shouldn't go to college. I'm not saying, like, this is not a either or situation. I'm just trying to show people that there's more than one way to skin the cat, and college is not the only way. There's other ways. Not that college is bad and not going to college is good. I'm just trying to say that there's other ways besides just college to make it in life and to actually make a career for yourself. So definitely let's circle back soon, very soon, and set up a time to have that conversation. In closing, Jason, how can our audience get a hold of you if someone wants to get in touch with you and ask for advice, or they're looking for opportunity and they're hearing that Camden is hiring and they love to join your team? how can someone get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. My name is Jason Fein. My email is jf as in Frank EIN at camdenliving.com. Feel free to email me. I'm always up for having conversations with people, and I'm on LinkedIn, so you can message me there as well. And I look forward to talking to anybody that wants to figure out how we can improve the multifamily industry.
Jason, thanks again for joining Multifamily Chronicles this morning. Amazing conversation. And let's put that on a calendar to have our next conversation about college versus no college. Okay, education. That's very important message that we got to get out there for the world. Okay.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you coming. Everybody, thank you very much for taking the time to watch us today. This is Multifamily Chronicles. I'm your host, Adrian Danella, and I hope to see you back here soon. Have a great day.
Bye.